Hi there, it's Elise Brunelle, the Executive Director of the VSO, and I am joined by Andrew Crust, who has joined us from a long way away to come and be our final music director candidate. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. Well, just to have our audience get to know you a little bit better, I want to ask you a few questions. And the first one is that I was looking at your schedule for January and February, and it's almost a question of where aren't you? You're in Billings, you're in Vancouver, you're here, you're back in Ohio. You travel a lot, and I'd love to know how you make that all work for your career.
You noticed, did you?
I did.
It's been a little bit wild, I would say, in these past couple of months, and that's something we all have to kind of find a balance with. And I will say right now, it's a little off this balance. I'm doing a lot of traveling, and of course, I live now in Vancouver. I was just there last week, but I had four concerts in one week, three different programs. So it felt great to be in my own bed, but it was also quite busy and. It's a challenge, but I think we all find the right balance. And right now, being here and sort of in the running for this music director position or getting to meet the orchestra, once these things sort of settle down, my life is going to settle down as well, and I'm really looking forward to that because myself and a lot of the other guests you're having are looking at a lot of different places and running around and seeing what's the right fit. But that's not, you when you go into conducting, you think, oh, traveling it must be so exciting. It's not always what you think it's going to be. Although sometimes you luck out, and here I am in this beautiful city. I can see the lake right here from my window, and sometimes you get to come to really beautiful places and meet wonderful people. But it's a challenge. I'm looking forward to kind of evening things out a little bit. But
Fantastic.
as I told you, I'm not a stranger to this area. I used to live in Montreal for 4 years. I did my master's there and stayed a bit longer. And I used to come down here frequently for various reasons, either to fly out of the airport or to on the way to Boston or something. And for whatever reason, I'm sure I'll tell this story a lot this week, but I would always stop at Shanty on the Shore because I knew how to get there without a smartphone. You just go straight down the
Yep.
highway, the main road, and you turn left. And I just discovered it one day. So I've been through town a lot, but I haven't had the chance to really absorb. So I'm really looking forward to it.
That's great, and we're looking forward to you coming here in a musical way, instead of just traveling through as a tourist or a traveler. So, I also just was reading through your bio, and I was particularly struck with something that's very much at the heart of the VSO, which is youth education and music education. And I'd love to know a little bit more about some of the projects you have developed around that, and how, just talk a little bit about what you think the role is of a state orchestra in terms of youth music education.
I'm glad you bring that up early because honestly, I think it's the most important thing we do. Now, of course, conductors and musicians, we all love doing that, but people think about, oh, the concert with Gil Shaham, the once in a lifetime, the great soloists and all of these people. That's also wonderful to do. But we think about ticket sales and we think about programming to get people to buy tickets and to survive, but it's really about music, right? It's about what's the point of this music. We believe that music enriches lives and that it creates cultural understanding and empathy and makes you better at all the other areas when we're talking about kids, all the other areas in school. And it teaches you how to be a human being. So that's our first responsibility. And I don't think the education stops with kids. I think education continues through adulthood. So orchestras are there really to be this bastion of education, I think, in the whole community. And so I think as a music director, you have to be deeply involved in that. And I happen to like doing these shows. Last week I did one in Vancouver, and I try and find local issues and topics when you're doing these programs. And there are many things. I know you all do so many different things. You have young composers program, which I really find interesting. You have these sort of backstage pass things that you bring people in and they have a mentor, and these are great. When you do a big orchestra show for kids, I like to find something of local interest. For example, in Ohio, where I have an orchestra, where I'm music director, that state has the most astronauts of anywhere in the world for whatever. including Neil Armstrong, who was born just down the road from where I conduct. So we created a Neil Armstrong show, and we talked about science and music. And I've also done shows about people, different composers who have faced adversity and who have been told that they can't compose, whether it be because they're a woman or because they're not white or because of their religion or whatever it might be. So there's a chance to not only teach them about music, but about being good citizens. So I think, what is our role? Well, we have, I think, one of the largest roles. Obviously, individual music teachers are the real heroes around the country, underfunded, underpaid, just under everything. So they're out there doing the best possible work. But I think one of the main responsibilities of an orchestra is, if not us, who else is going to be out there getting the music to these kids? The parents sometimes have no interest, and they are only going to play for their kids whatever it is that they like. And so we have to be there to expose them to that, and to teach the parents that it's not just for entertainment, right? It makes better human beings. So get your kids. But also, we have to lobby the local governments and say, we need more funding, because some of these kids, their parents might say, great, let's get them in an orchestra, but I can't afford a French horn, I can't afford private lessons. So I think it's one of the most important things an orchestra does, and I'm very happy to see all the work that you all do.
Great. And it's work that we love to do. And in every state is very different. And I think about Vermont being such a rural state, transportation and just access, geographic access to things is also a challenge. But in a similar vein, talk to us a little bit about what we're calling within our organization, JEDI, which is Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. Tell us a little bit more about the work you've been doing in that area.
Well, this has always been important, but right now it's finally being dealt with in our industry in a really meaningful way. And I think it was being dealt with, but it was sort of spotty, right? And now we've had some really big revelations, I think, and it's just wonderful, because it took much longer for us than a lot of other industries. And that's, in a way, it's tough because the industry is not as nimble. You have to plan years out in advance. But it doesn't have to be that way, especially for regional groups. I mean, the Metropolitan Opera might be planning 5 years out, but even they just decided to shift to doing more new music. And so I think it's really important, because, like I said, music is for everyone, and it makes everyone a better person and more culturally connected. Why are certain groups having access more than others? And so we, as orchestra leaders, have the ability to affect change there in a lot of ways. And part of it is programming, obviously. What composers are you choosing? And you all do that very well. But it's more than that. It's about soloists and conductors, because I mean, for me, you have to see someone that looks like you, or that is a part of your group. You have to see them doing the thing to sometimes realize that I can also do that thing. And so, for example, in Memphis, I worked for a time with that orchestra, and that's in terms of the racial side of this, a 65%, I think, Black city. And the orchestra obviously is not 65% Black. It's better than most, I will say, in terms of diversity. But the audience wasn't also not, right? And so we made it our task to try and really turn that around. And I think the most important thing is you can't just assume that if you build this concert that people from some other group are going to show up. That's kind of arrogant, actually, I think. And it has this feeling of supremacy in it, or Western art supremacy, whereas every culture has something that is like the orchestra. And because we hold this thing on this high pedestal, doesn't mean that it's not equal to all of these other art forms. And so when I was in Ohio with my orchestra, we actually created a Black History Month concert. And we brought in spoken word artists, and we had some new spoken word pieces created and performed. And these kind of real collaborations with actual members of the community, they were all local poets. Now people are coming because it's them, and because they're using a language that they know because it's their friends and their neighbors. I also did a program with Sandeep Das, who's a tabla player, the Wijeratna Tabla Concerto, which is one of my favorite recent pieces. And again, you can't just assume that if you make something that's Indian, that all the Indian folks are going to show up. you really have to go into the community and ask yourself, am I going to their things? And then if not, then why should I expect them to come to my things? You think of just in terms of Black composers, are you going, like, think of all of the inventions that have come out of that culture, and are you holding jazz to the same on the same high pedestal, and blues and rock and roll and all of these things? So it's really just a matter of communicating and getting people as much representation as possible, but really doing the work to find the good people too. There's people everywhere that are there just waiting to go.
Yep.
So I think, yeah, there's so many facets to this. But we have to also remember that we can still play Beethoven, and this week we are playing Tchaikovsky. And if life would have been better for people of color and people of different religion and gender identity, all these things back in the day, we'd have a lot of female Tchaikovskys from the 1880s, but we don't, because that's how it was. At the same time, these works are still quite relevant today. They're masterpieces. So we have to balance it. We can't throw it all out. That's
I agree. Now let's jump into Tchaikovsky and Morlock and Sierra. So you've got, I realize it's quite an international range of composers and styles. This is a very unique program. Talk to us. Let's start with Jocelyn Morlock, who wrote a fantastic birdsong piece and is a friend of yours. So let's hear a little bit about her and about her piece, then maybe jump into Tchaikovsky and into Sierra.
Sure. Yeah, this program's a bit eclectic, which sometimes works. I don't think it always has to have this thread that goes through it, stylistically. Jocelyn is a friend. We both live in Vancouver, and she's a Canadian composer and been very successful. And I just love her because she's like me. She's kind of quirky in that she has a lot of different interests. For example, she decided she would start playing the flugelhorn the other day, and now
who doesn't, right?
Yeah. She just comes up with these little projects, and she has this inquisitive mind. And this piece that we're going to play is her first orchestra piece, which is incredible to me because it doesn't sound like that. It's so masterful already, and it's in a minimalist style, which is a style she doesn't always employ. But it's called Oiseaux bleus et sauvages, which in French means wild bluebirds. And it's not overtly programmatic. It originally actually was commissioned by Brunelle and the Vancouver Symphony, and it was originally called Speckled Egg, but Bramwell didn't like that title, so he asked.
Not quite the selling title. I can hear.
Yeah, it's not. So she added something French and more, but it is birdsong related, and I'll tell this story, I'm sure, this week, because I feel this feeling when I hear it that you're walking through the old growth forest in British Columbia, which we both live near, and bird songs, they overlap in all these different ways, and they respond to one another, and they evolve as you walk. And so if you're walking through the forest, you leave one bird behind, and now another sound is coming. And so it is melodic, this piece, but it's not about melody and form in the way that Tchaikovsky would be. It's this aural soundscape that's just full of color and a beautiful rhythm, and it's a great way to feature also the woodwinds.
I was going to say the flutists, the bassoonists, and they'll all be quite happy with this, I hope.
Well, poor flutes always have to be birds, right? They never get to be anything.
When can they be elephants? Never. And well, let's jump into Tchaikovsky.
Yeah, that's where to begin? It's a piece that's been an old friend of mine. I actually just bought a new score to bring to have delivered to your office, because I got so tired of all the ancient writings that I have written in my other older version of the score. So I was like, I need to start fresh on this one, because it's one of those things that just stays with you your whole life. It's one of those pieces that continues to affect you, and I think to me, Tchaikovsky is the most personal composer. And obviously we think of that with the Romantics. We think that they're wearing their heart on their sleeve. They're very emotional, whereas the classical period is more restrained or stylized. But for Tchaikovsky, I really feel like he's just pouring out his heart. And I know that sounds cliche, but this symphony to me is all about a longing for something that can't be achieved. And the overarching element here is the hairpin, So for those of you who don't know what I mean, musically speaking, it looks like this. It's a crescendo and a decrescendo. And that can either be in terms of dynamics or in terms of speeding up and slowing down. It is everywhere. On every page of the score, this figure is there. And to me, it's him reaching out for something and then having to be pulled back. And we know that it's also about fate, right? He's written that the symphony is about fate. And there's a motif. The symphony opens with this fate motif, and it comes back triumphantly in the finale, but it is brutally destructive in the second movement, right when he's having this beautiful dream or fantasy about what life could be like, and then it just like rips him down from the heights. And it appears at the very end. He's having a nice little waltz in the third movement, and then at the very end of the waltz, the fate theme comes back in a minor key. So he's struggling with these inner issues. And I think the great thing about it is he doesn't write specifically what this is. I can take a lot of guesses as to what it could be, and I'm sure it's a lot of things. But that means that it's still relevant for us today, because we identify with whatever we are longing for, whatever struggles we have, whether it be personal or worldwide, global issues. So it's still powerful. Musically, I mean, he's just one of the greatest melody writers and harmonic tension. It's just one of those things that you can't help but feel what he's feeling, from the most intimate moments, like the very quiet opening, to the full brass going full force. It's just one of the greatest symphonies. And and orchestras know it well, so you can start right away working on the music and the details.
Yeah, that's especially as when they kind of have that in their bones, and you have against that a brand new piece by Roberto Sierra. It really informs how you're going to spend your rehearsal time with the orchestra. So let's talk a little bit about this piece by Roberto. It's the first time you're conducting it, right? Because I know it's been premiered with some other orchestras.
Well, I think this is the third time it's been performed.
Third time, yeah.
Once with American Symphony, then there was a symphony in Texas.
In Texas, yep, that's right.
So I haven't had a chance yet, and that's always an interesting challenge. But you made a good point. Like you have a Tchaikovsky piece which everybody knows. You can go right into the music of it,
the nuances, yes.
Yeah. But with a new piece, you have to figure out the sound universe. What we don't even know what the style is supposed to be, and there aren't recordings of things that are brand new. And of course, I have the score. The musicians don't really have the score usually. So it's a process of discovery. You have to just let people play it through a bit first to figure out where are we. It's it's like seeing a film without even seeing the trailer. You don't know what's going to happen at all.
And then let's throw in an electric violin.
Right. Yeah.
Something none of us have played with so far as I know. So that's another thing to throw into the mix. What's exciting for you about that piece?
It is really cool. I have to say, I didn't actually know Roberto Sierra, and I'm so happy I do, because he's a masterful composer. It's just incredible. It's incredible. The colors, of course, he's Puerto Rican, I believe, and there are a lot of Latin influences, which are very interesting. The piece, of course, called Ficciones, based on books and stories by the author Borges, sort of sci-fi, some of these stories. And I'm a huge sci-fi fan. And I was just talking with Patricia in the car, because we both read a lot, and we were talking about all of the sci-fi that I'm more of the sci-fi guy. But, one of these books is about a planet where every one point of light can hold all the information about that they need in culture and language. And so he's made that point of light C natural. So the whole movement is based around C natural, but it's so much variety. And I know that he's worked extensively with Tracy, our electric violinist, to find what are the colors, what are the things you can do. And that's important for any composer. Writing for an instrument, they need to learn it inside out. And so he's done that. He's utilizing a lot of the really cool effects. It's really exciting, like texturally, color-wise. There's so many things you've never heard before with percussion. You've got like conga drums and vibra slaps, it's got everything. And then of course the electric violin, you can add all of these effects, which Tracy's been illustrating a lot this week on social media. I think it's a fantastic piece. It's not often that I do a new piece and I didn't choose it personally, and I don't know the composer, and then after having done it, I want to do it again, But I
Mm,
think this time I definitely do because it's a really interesting piece on pretty much every level.
great. Well, I'm going to wrap this up, but I would love one more question to get an answer from you, which is what do you want Vermonters to know about you? What when you're done with us and you get back on your plane, you go home, and everyone who's enjoyed the concert and gotten to know you, what do you want them to take away about you?
Well, you know, it's a dangerous game, this conducting, because you always think it's about you. I hope they'll learn that I don't care so much about that. Obviously, you know, you are the musical leader. You're the one doing the rehearsals and doing the talking from the podium. But I think it's important to remember that there's a whole orchestra there. And when people come up to me after a concert and they say, or I hear people in a concert and all they want to talk about is the conductors gesticulating, and I'm thinking, yeah, well, what about the music, right? So I hope that they come up with the idea that I'm a collaborative person, and also I think that having come from a bunch of different musical backgrounds, not only classical but jazz, and you know, my stepfather is a rock musician, and you know, I hope people will find out that I have a wide diversity of musical interest, and I think a lot of it actually belongs in the concert hall. Not necessarily all of it all the time. Some things don't pair well with other things, but I don't have any ideas that one kind of music is necessarily much better than any other. Now, obviously, you're an orchestra, you do orchestral music, but I think in the 21st century, we have to embrace so many different styles, and conductors have to embrace so many different ways of connecting with audiences, and that's something that I really love doing, and I hope I can do it everywhere I go. But I'm just really happy to be here, and tomorrow's our first rehearsal, which is always the most exciting part, except the concert, of
Is
course.
but you're joining us tonight. We're going to be down at Farmers Night at the Montpelier State House, so you get to experience it. It'll be nice for you not to be on the podium and just to experience a chamber orchestra size of us, and then join us in the rehearsal tomorrow. So great to meet you, and we'll get this posted on the Vermont Symphony Orchestra's YouTube channel. Andrew, I'll see you at the office where you get to meet the staff shortly, and welcome to Vermont. Nice to
Thank you
meet
very
you.
much. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.